Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. So today's topic is nutrition, and we're going to discuss how to make room for bad food. So it just so happens that this podcast will be coming out on Halloween. Isn't that coincidental? So what are you going to do if you want to sneak some pieces of candy from your kid's stash, right? So we all have Halloween. We all love Halloween. At least I haven't met anybody who doesn't like it yet. But candy is one of the greatest things in the world. So how do we get to have candy when we really want it? That's what we're going to talk about today. So whether you're stealing the candy from your kids, don't pretend it doesn't happen. It happens. Or whether you bought too much for treaters and oh no, oh darn, there's all these leftovers now. Geez, oh whiz, what are we gonna do? So, in those cases where you want to sneak in some candy, or say they're having a holiday, family get together, some type of event where we would like to be able to kind of branch away from our normal way of eating and maybe include some foods that we would typically call quote unquote bad foods, things that we know are kind of not the healthiest options out there. So, how do we do that without falling too far off our program or off our progress towards our goals? So, there's two basic ways. I want to give this one as kind of a quick variation to the answer in the sense that let's not overcomplicate it. So, I want to give you quick, easy things. And then I'm going to be referencing a lot of podcasts, okay, 6 that I can see right now, to where if you would like to learn more detail about each individual concept, please go look up those podcasts. But I don't want to make this podcast feel too burdened down with details. So that way you get the answer you want and you can start kind of applying the information today. So the first thing that people typically think of in order to make room for bad food is to eat no other food. So they're like, okay, well, if I want to have, go out with friends and I want to eat a lot tonight, I want to go out and have a burger, have some drinks, I just kind of want to enjoy myself. Well, then I'm not going to eat anything all day. So that way I have all the calories saved for night. No, 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 no. Okay, that is not good. So we have talked about in past podcast number 390, okay, titled Proper Nutrition for Sedentary Workers, that if you're up and awake and you're active, you actually still need calories just to stay alive. So your body needs calories, and roughly we're going to say 70%. And in that podcast, we talk about the science of that and how do we come up with 70%. Let's just go with it, okay, to give you an idea that is it true that if I'm up and active, I need calories? Yes. Do I need all the calories? No. So you can undereat your other meals of the day, and that will allow you to kind of create a caloric window of allowance for the larger meal later in the day that you would like to have. However, if you eat nothing all day, yes, that creates an even larger caloric window, but it creates a whole bunch of other problems. So in podcast 249, titled Meal Timing, we talk about the dangerous effects, well, not dangerous, I guess, just like the non-productive effects of skipping meals. So in general, when you skip a meal, your body says, oh shit, where's my fuel? And it says, I don't have anything to run on. We don't have anything in our system. What in the heck am I supposed to do? So it starts down regulating everything. It says, hey body, whatever the hell you're doing, slow it all down and do less of that while I go find some calories. And where does it go? It goes to body fat. So it's going to go pick away at some body fat. And we think that's a great thing, okay? Is we get to use up some of our body fat. However, first of all, it had to down-regulate all the other processes that were going on. So you actually lowered your metabolism. You lowered how much calories your body is burning. So therefore, even if it's going to now start burning off body fat, it's not burning much. And what also happens is you create a sensation of kind of uncertainty in the body. So it says the next time you eat food, it's going to go, well, crap, we missed that meal last time, and we had to dip into our reserves. So stored body fat is protection. It's caloric protection for the body. That's why we have it, is in case we miss meals, in case we can't eat certain foods. at certain times when we need them, the body stores energy for other times. So actually, whenever you skip a meal, you're actually reinforcing the need for the body to have body fat, because it's only having body fat to protect itself when it misses meals. Well, when you miss a meal on freaking purpose, you're actually reinforcing the need for body fat. Okay? So then when you do eat, your body says, holy shit, let's save everything we can right now and replace some of the body fat that we lost and actually build more. Because if we ever miss another meal, I don't want to be challenged again. I don't want to be running the risk again of not having enough energy stored. So when you miss a meal, you actually reinforce the body's need for having body fat. So instead, what the better outcome is to not skip meals and try to consume only about 70% of what you need at that time. So whatever your normal breakfast would be, have 70% of that. Okay, and you can think of this in thirds. So 2/3 is 66%. Okay, close enough. So have 2/3 of a normal meal. Then maybe at lunch, and you want to have something bigger later in the day. Still have lunch, but only have 2/3 of what you would normally eat. Okay? So that's what you can do nutrition-wise. Do not skip meals. Okay? That is not going to help. That's detrimental. It's negative. Not good. But if you only have 2/3 of your normal meals, that maybe will help us pick away at some body fat for sure, but it doesn't create that protectionist response of the body going, oh crap, we need to save everything in case they ever do that again. The body, if you have 2/3 of your meals, the body's going to go, okay, well, that wasn't a lot of calories, but we were getting enough when we needed it. And they went and had this big meal later in the day. We don't really need to save all that because we weren't in too much of a detriment that we were really at risk at any point in the day. So at the big meal, it doesn't try to save every ounce of calories. Okay? So you actually have the big meal, but you don't have as much storage, like fat storage retention after that. Or fat storage creation, I guess would be the right word. So the body doesn't try to save as many calories as possible. Whereas if you skipped the other meals all day, then yes, it'll try to save as many calories as possible. So, another way that we commonly see this happen is in self-punishment cycles. So in podcast 113, titled Self-Punishment Cycles, we discussed that this is typically what people do wrong. When they make one mistake in nutrition, they tend to make a bunch more and not realize it. So maybe one night they go out with friends, they have alcohol, they have food, they got drunk, they ate a bunch of pizza and some shit that they shouldn't have eaten, but we've all done it. So then the next day they feel guilty, so they eat nothing all day. Then all of a sudden the day after that, they're like, holy crap, like I'm so starving, I ate nothing yesterday. So they end up overeating that day. But it's not quite as bad as the first day. So it's kind of like you have this really bad day of overeating, then a really bad day of undereating, then the next day you overeat, but it's not quite that bad, the next day you undereat, but it's not quite that bad, and eventually you kind of like wean your way back down to a normal kind of state. However, if I had 5 units over, then 5 units under, then 4 units over, then 4 units under, then 3 units over, 3 units under, and we kind of wind our way down, is you just ruined all those days. So rather than having the mistake on the one day and then just going right back on track and only having one day be a mistake, you've now just used 3 or 4 days as a mistake and you've made things significantly worse. So self-punishment does not work. If you make a mistake, recognize what triggered the mistake, try to avoid that, and then just move on with what you should be doing. Okay? There is no way to correct bad eating after it's happened. You can correct bad eating before it's happened, which is what this podcast is about. Or you can best control it. How about that? That's a better way of saying it. But you can't fix things after they're broke with nutrition. So if I overeat last night, I can't eat nothing today, undereating, and think that's going to counter it and fix it. Nutrition does not work that way. That's not how our body works. So, listen to podcast 113 to learn how to avoid the common self-punishment cycles so you don't continually make things worse by trying to quote-unquote fix things. Okay? So that's the first way we can make room for bad food, is by eating less before the meal. Not nothing. Okay, you don't skip meals, you just eat less. Eat only 66%, like 2/3-ish of your normal meals. That way you still have calories coming in, but it allows you a little bit of caloric clearance for the larger meal. Okay? Now, sometimes people will ask, okay, if that's what I can do beforehand, what can I do afterwards? Now, if you wanted to, if you went a little apeshit and went crazy on that meal, you can take the next meal or two and maybe do another kind of 2/3 afterwards. So you can think of it as something like, the 2 meals before this meal, I'm going to have 2/3, and the 2 meals after this meal, I'm going to have 2/3. You can think of it that way and do that. There's really no clear-cut science because I don't know how many calories you're having in that meal. So think of it as if it's a small cheat, maybe I only have to modify the meal beforehand and be good to go. If it's a larger cheat, maybe I want to modify 2 or 3 meals beforehand and 1 or 2 afterwards. So the number of meals you would modify to the 2/3 percentage or amount would depend on the size of the cheat. If it's a big cheat, you have to make big changes. If it's a small cheat, you make small changes. Okay? So that at least gives you somewhere to go. Okay, some idea. So typically what I'll do is if I'm going to have a big meal that night, I'll kind of do my 2/3 meals during the day, have the big meal at night, and start tomorrow fresh as a daisy and kind of do my normal things. That's how I kind of handle it. What if you're having a big meal in the middle of the day? Then have your 2/3 meal for breakfast, have your big meal in the middle of the day, have your 2/3 meal at supper. So I tend to kind of control my crazies within one 24-hour period. I find that most often allows me to feel emotional comfort with having the bigger meal and actually enjoy it and not be like feeling guilty the whole time. And it allows me to avoid carrying mistakes over from one day into the next. Cool. Okay. So the other way that we have that actually makes a significant difference, that's why I wanted to include it, is to exercise before you want to have your bad food. Okay. The reason why is explained in podcast 181, titled Using Muscle Damage for Fat Loss. In general, when you exercise to the extent and with the purpose of creating muscular damage, your body's need for calories to repair that damage increases. So in order for the body to do the work needed to fix the muscle, it needs protein. It needs calories in terms of like energetic calories. So that would be like carbohydrates and fats. It needs that to be able to fuel the repair process. So if you exercise in a manner that creates muscular damage, your need for calories during the recovery period increases. So therefore, if you eat extra calories, it's not as detrimental. They'll go towards that repair. So, if you can exercise and create muscle damage before you have your bad meals, less of the bad meal calories goes towards fat formation. Cool. Now, it's really important that we actually train correctly. You actually have to train in the way that creates muscular damage. Most people think, well, I'm just going to go out for a walk. No, doesn't work. Walking does not create muscle damage. Walking burns some calories, but it doesn't increase the body's caloric needs for repair. There's nothing to repair from. You just walked. That's what the human body is meant to do. Okay? So walking does not count. Likewise, if you're kind of like a strength athlete and you come in and like, well, I'm going to go really heavy today. I'm going to max out on my squat, and then I'm going to go home and eat everything I want. No. Working up to a 1 rep max and then leaving the gym is dumb. Okay, first of all. And it does not create a significant amount of muscle damage. You're going to get some muscle damage, yes. But is it as much as you could be if you were training specifically for muscle damage? No. So just as pure cardio is not correct, lifting one stupid heavy-ass thing is not correct either. So, in podcast 214, we discuss understanding rep ranges and expected results. So what are the rep ranges and time under tension time frames that I need to train under or with to get the result of muscular damage? There are time under tensions of say 10 seconds or less, which allows us to display our strength. 10 to 20 seconds of time under tension for an exercise typically allows you to build your strength. 20 to 30 seconds is heavy kind of muscle damage creation. 30 to 40 seconds is medium difficulty, medium intensity muscle damage creation. 40 to 60 seconds is really lightweight. It'll create some muscle damage, but it works more on muscular endurance. So podcast 214 explains why all those ranges are correct, and it allows you to then pick out the right range for you. So if you're used to lifting heavy things, I would do a lot of exercises in my 20 to 30 second time retention range and 30 to 40 second time retention range. That's going to give you really good muscle damage, have a great workout. That'll increase your caloric need for repair, and that'll give you room to have the bad food, quote unquote, later in the day. If you're not used to lifting heavy, then doing activities of 20, 30 seconds, if you don't know good form, can be somewhat dangerous, has potential to be dangerous. So if you're uncertain if the form you're using is correct, I would aim for time under tensions of 30 to 60 seconds. Because typically the weight loads that you use at that time are too light to actually really cause injury most often. So if you know you have good form though, then lift heavy shit. Okay, 20 to 30 seconds of time under tension. Really get some good muscle damage build up. Okay? But that's what's going to be needed for you to have a caloric need increase from exercise. It is avoiding pure cardio or avoiding pure strength. You can do those with combination of muscle damage activity, but you can't do those excluding muscle damage activity and think you're getting the results that we want. So you have to have muscle damage activity, and podcast 214 explains that more. And in general, it's going to explain that activities of 20 to 60 seconds of time under tension, meaning you start the exercise, your muscles are under the load of the weight for 20 to 60 seconds, and you put the weight down. Okay? So that time frame is going to give you the best chance for muscular damage. The presence of muscular damage is going to allow you to use up more of the calories of the bad foods. Cool. So those are the two main ways we have, is eat less before and after the meal, but don't skip meals. And then exercise before the meal if you can. Does exercising after the meal help? Not anywhere near as much as if you were to exercise ahead of time. It's better to use the excess calories towards repair than to eat too much and then try to burn it off later. There's a lot of science behind the fact that you'll actually most likely create muscular loss effects more than you'll actually create muscular gain effects. There's a whole bunch of nitty-gritty sciencey crap to that, and I don't want to get too much into it. Okay, but exercising after you eat, and again, this is the same thing as when we try to fix our nutrition after we eat. We talked about those self-punishment cycles. That eating nothing the day after I overate does not fix it. Exercising after I overate does not fix it. Okay? Is it better than doing nothing? Nah, I would say no, because you're getting into bad habits, and you're learning to think of mistakes as needing to be punished. That's not the case. Okay, if you want to have some good food, just frickin' make some room for it, enjoy it, and move on with life. You have to learn to be flexible with your nutrition, because life is everywhere. Life is always changing. It's never constant. So you need to learn how to modify and change things and go with the flow, still being in control, okay, still making smart choices, but learning that things don't have to be perfect, and just because you weren't perfect doesn't mean that you need to be punished, okay? Cool. So, an example of how I use this when I'm on vacations and trips and whatever is I typically will get up earlier before everybody else. So if I know everybody else is going to be up around like 7 or 8, I'll get up at 5:30 or 6 and go exercise. So I've done that bajillions of times, and my family thinks I'm nuts, but it allows me to have a lot less stress throughout the day, a lot less guilt. I can have fun, eat whatever I want to eat, do whatever I want to do, because I know my goals are already met for the day. So I get up before everybody else. I'll have a little bit of a breakfast, okay? So only 66% of what I would normally eat. Then I go do exercise that creates muscular damage. First of all, do not work out in a fasted state, meaning you didn't eat. Do not work out with no food in you. That's stupid, and it's unproductive. And in podcast 305, we discuss why. Podcast 305 is titled Nutritional Concerns for Cardio-Only Workouts. Do not do unfed exercise, fasted exercise, okay? It is not productive. Okay, there's not even an asterisk to that. It just literally isn't. So don't do it. Okay, so you'll get up, you'll have a little bit of a breakfast, 66% of your breakfast. You'll then do a morning workout in a manner that creates muscular damage. You will have listened to podcast 214. You will have understood what you need to do in that workout to create muscular damage. So then you'll go do that workout and create muscular damage. Then you're going to have 66% of what you would normally eat post-workout. Then the rest of the day, until you get to your big cheat meal, you're going to have 66% of those meals as well. So that's the goal. Get up early, eat a little bit, exercise a little bit, then go have fun the rest of the day. Okay? If you want to have bad food, it's fine. It's okay to have bad food. It's okay to have fun. It's okay to eat ice cream. It's okay to eat cake. It's okay to eat candy. You just got to earn it. Okay? You just got to make some corrective moves and steps beforehand to make sure it's not going to push you too far off track. Cool? So hopefully this helped. So if you're listening to this at the beginning of Halloween, okay, at the beginning of the day, you can use this now for the rest of today. You also can use this in the upcoming holidays of Thanksgiving, Christmas, any kind of life events we have going on, where you're going to have some bad food. Maybe you just want to go out and have a date night on Friday night with your spouse or significant other, or even friends, okay? Now you know how to do it to where you don't fall behind in your goals. Hopefully this helped. If you have any extra questions on top of this topic, email us at brutalirongym@gmail.com. Go check out the podcast that we referenced if you want more of the sciencey type knowledge of why this stuff is all true. But hopefully this was short and sweet enough to the point that you can use it. You understand enough to use it, but we didn't overwhelm you. Okay? Cool. Okay, so that's the steps. Eat less before and after, but don't skip meals. And exercise to the point of having muscular damage. And then you're good to go. Have fun, eat the food, no guilt. Just have fun, enjoy life, okay? Cool. If you like the podcast, please share it with family and friends. Please, please, please. This is actually a really good one to kind of share because a lot of people need this information. And the reason why we like to share it is the more people we help, the happier the world will be, okay? So if you have anybody that you think wrestles with food, or if you have anybody on social media and you just want to throw this up there, please do it, because a lot of people wrestle with the guilt of eating, and they don't really need to have that guilt. They don't need to feel bad. They just need to learn how to use what the information they have presented to them. Okay? Cool. Also, if you like this information, you can find more from us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Brutal Iron Gym. And if you have any questions, feedback, or suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. The podcast is for you, so we want to know what you want to learn about. You can tell us at our email, brutalirongym@gmail.com. As always, I hope this was helpful. And thank you for listening. And thank you for watching.